I love Pokemon, and while sometimes it's a bit of a complicated relationship, but I'm guessing since you clicked on this video, you probably like it as well. Or you just want to hear about my deteriorating brain and laugh. Hi, if that's you. Growing up, I would play the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games on my couch for hours with no issue. I was just this pure soul laying around on a cold winter day, having the time of my life. And who am I kidding? I was doing this on hot summer days as well, staying inside. However, once I entered those dreaded teen years, that was the later DS era of games for me, I got busier and I had less time to play, like I think a lot of us. This led to me downloading an emulator on my shitty Galaxy 2 smartphone and loading up some Pokemon ROMs for the very first time and playing them in study hall or playing them at track meets, or even going so far as to play them in the bathroom. I hope I'm not the only one who did that, and if that's you, then, well, I'm glad we can relate on that one subject. But one of the things I quickly found out while doing this was that most emulators have this speed up function. At first, this seemed like a very decent added function to speed up the grinding process, especially when you're playing those harder ROM hacks and your crew needs to be like level 20 for the very first gym. And I do agree that this is a nice function to have along with save states and rewind, but slowly speeding up the grinding process leaked into speeding up conversations with NPCs and different story beats, and I was starting to get a little annoyed at myself for doing that. What I didn't know at the time though was every sweet pull of that trigger map to speed up was slowly eating away at my already dwindling attention span, and a new growth was forming that told my brain every single time I tried to go back to playing the games on the OG handhelds that these games are just so much slower. Now I know some of you are probably thinking that it's just not emulators killing my attention span, it's probably a whole digital web being in your pocket at all times, and I'm not going to completely ignore that, but I wanted to stick to just Pokemon right now. We'll talk about that other subject a little more later. Anyways, back to the main point. The first time this really became apparent though was when Pokemon X and Y came out. This was the next generation of Pokemon games, and it was released when I was in my last year of high school. And I just remember though, my first impressions of this game wasn't, wow, this game is so beautiful on this new handheld, or I'm so excited to see all my favorites in 3D. It was, shit, this game's slow. Mind you, I think there's one reason for this. I was already pretty good at Pokemon games, so X and Y's intro with tutorials is slow and takes a long time for you to meet the cast of delinquents that think you're their friend or something, and when they're all just so much more inferior to you and beneath your godly Pokemon mastery. This is my 6th time through. I have beat Lance, I have beat Cynthia, Tierno, you do not compare, you don't matter. The second reason these games felt so slow though was because when I wasn't playing through X and Y, I was still hyper speeding my way through a randomized run of Pokemon Ruby or doing some sort of Nuzlocke in Pokemon Leaf Green. And just when you do this, everything else just kind of feels like an eternity. Now, I eventually did succumb to the slower X and Y game and enjoy my time with it. I still rank this game pretty favorably amongst the rest of them. I also eventually turned off battle animations, and this definitely speeds up the game, but it does kind of take away, I think, some of the joy of playing these games. These lifeless 3D models just sit there motionless, dealing damage to one another. And even when you play this game all sped up, you can still kind of see the animations. I mean, albeit they're really quick, but you can still see them. This just continued as well, each new game feeling like more of a slog than the last. Not to mention with games like Sword and Shield and especially Scarlet and Violet having just poor frame rates. Even if the animations were smoother in these games, the games themselves run at like 15 frames a second, so not great. I also wasn't really doing myself any favors by still going back to the older games and speeding my way through. But honestly, I think this is just some of the reason I kind of gave up on playing these games competitively, with huge air quotes on competitively. In the DS era and X and Y, I was still making teams of competitive Pokemon and raising them up to be the best they could be, even grinding for the max EVs, IVs, and shinies and everything like that. And around Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I just completely lost all ambition to just take this huge amount of time to grind for hours and hours and hours, only to be disappointed with a to have a little squirrel with 30 IVs and stuff. I mean, come on, that's just pathetic, man. Try harder when you're born. And no hate on people who actually do this, I just can't do it anymore. And now, as I mentioned earlier, just add on my addiction to watching short form content and having an even faster phone. Sometimes it just feels like my brain is just going twice the speed, and some of these Pokemon games just can't keep up. Now that I've had this realization, I'm wondering, how do I fix this? Or maybe you're wondering that as well and didn't think you were gonna get a life hack here, did you? Well, I have some advice, I guess, but I don't know how to fix your attention span. I'll let a qualified professional help you with that and your problems there. But I do have a couple suggestions that help me keep things a little bit in perspective. One, I do think animations in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and especially Legends, and their new battle system are a lot quicker. I think they're trying a little harder, maybe at least, especially Arceus. It just feels like the gameplay can keep up with my new brain disease a lot better. So I'm kind of hoping that with new hardware, Game Freak will actually take the time to optimize the new games, and they'll become a lot quicker and flashier and maybe more of like some of their contemporaries, like say Fire Emblem Engage or Persona 5. 2, if you do have these games on original hardware, I noticed a couple of things when I went back to them. First, obviously you can't speed them up, so you're forced to play this game at its intended pace, which during the pandemic was actually quite refreshing to just relive the original games as I did in the past. I was also stuck in one place with nothing else to do. But the other thing is, if it's been a while since you've looked at these games on the OG hardware, they just look amazing. And I also recently learned there's a reason for that. The games can kind of look a little washed out on other devices like a 3DS or something if you get them running on there. And part of that is because the original GBA screen was pretty shitty, so the sprites just have a certain look to them that made it better on those screens. So now when I think you put them on something or more modern screen, sometimes they look a little weird, to me at least. So playing them on the original GBA just feels so right to me, and it's hard to explain without looking at it yourself. But there is one last thing that I think can help if you don't want to wait for Game Freak to fix your problem, or you don't want to play this game on the original hardware. You could also just play the game in shorter intervals. I've been doing this with my current playthrough of Pokemon Emerald. I've been playing on the Steam Deck, and when I just find when I play this game in like shorter intervals for like just 1 hour, the game feels so much more fresh in that 1 hour that I play. And anytime it goes after that, that's when I start to feel this need to like speed up more. So that might also help you as well. Also, I've been playing Pokemon Emerald again, and oh my god, this game is so amazing. I kind of want to make a video on it. Let me know if you'd be interested in that below. That's just me though. I try my best to be just in the moment and enjoy these games when I can and not fidget around like a 5-year-old with ADHD in math class. Experiencing these games is supposed to be enjoyable. Though I do find it kind of ironic when I'm recording footage for this, I will be using the speed up button most of the time to get to the right point in the game where I want some footage from, so yeah, I got some work to do myself still, but I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, and subscribe on how brain broken you are. See ya.